Storytelling. Storytelling is an interactive art that uses words and actions to communicate the elements and events in a story while stimulating the imagination of the reader or the listener. Okay, so let's say there's someone I heard the voice that's quite familiar, Mr. John. Now, Mr. John left his house today and went to work and came back to his house. So that's what happened to Mr. John. However, that's not storytelling. It's not fascinating. It's not interactive. So when I begin to discuss, you want to hear how it ended, and that's where the storytelling becomes really interactive. Storytelling becomes powerful when you have the ability to stimulate the imagination of your listener, such that the person was not there, oh, but because of how you told the story, the person feels as though he was in the story. That's why we watch movies and we begin to cry at emotional points because they have been able to tell the story in a way that it stimulated your imagination. Now, storytelling is the oldest form of persuasive communication. It still remains one of the most effective forms. So when they want to tell us that our ancestors, our bosses want to tell us that, should I say our ancestors now, want to tell us that we shouldn't try this thing, we shouldn't eat this kind of food. They tell us stories of people, how it could even be mythical, how maybe a snake saved our tribe and we shouldn't, so we can't eat this kind of snake and all that. Now, our grandparents persuaded our parents, now it's persuading people of our generation to keep up with those traditions. So it's the oldest form of persuasive communication, and it still remains one of the most effective forms. It has been used to pass down traditions, spread religions. Now look at, I don't know, I think in the Quran, in the Holy Quran, and in the sutras of the Hindus and the Taoist scripts, there are even in the Bible, there are a lot of stories, and these stories have been able to convey the mind of the faith or the ideology of the faith to the worshippers. So it's not only traditions, even religions. Now, people even impart ideologies through stories. For instance, this I have a dream. When the man was talking about have a dream, you look at the picturization, the things he was saying that's Martin Luther King Jr. He was saying, I have a dream that the child of a black man, my child who is a black and play in the hills of Louisiana with the Confederate States. I don't know if Louisiana is though. It's a story, and that remains it today an ideology. Brands also use it to market their goods. So when you watch a Coca-Cola advert, you see someone they're having a family is having a boring day, then someone just open Coca-Cola bottle and everyone becomes happy. And that's a story. So markets people also use it to market their brands. Now, why do you need storytelling? From what I just described of what storytelling is, number one, to make lessons stick because we remember stories more than statistics. If I tell you that um, I I used to have 12 friends, four left me, three only have five friends. You will remember this that I have five friends more than when I tell you that 6% or 40% of my friends are no longer in the country. That 40% of my friends, you will not even remember. I just know that some of my friends, but you not remember the 40% very well. Why? Because we remember stories a lot. Stories work with our mind, our imaginative tendencies. Now, another thing is we tell stories we to encourage, dissuade, or entertain people, right? So encourage means sometimes maybe you are with your friend and you're trying to encourage him after he went through a bad or terrible event. You tell him story of someone who went through a similar event and is now doing well. Or you want to dissuade someone from doing something, tell him a story of someone who did that thing and went bad. Or you want to entertain. I think it's one of the most okay. For instance, you go to comedy sessions and all that. They tell you stories, funny stories to make you laugh, right? The number three thing that you can use stories to do or storytelling to do is to market or the market elements. So I'm currently working with a brand. So for the past 1 month, we did content. right? So I was one who created all the content. So we were now analyzing the content that performed better. And they told me that the content where I told stories had more engagement. So for this month, we are writing every content we are writing stories. We are using stories to pass all our information. So story sells. Story sells. People want to feel the human touch of your business. Now you can also use it to the market elements, to make people not trust something. For instance, when they want to kill the reputation of a brand, they tell a story of someone that trusted the brand and failed woefully. All right. So I want to be sure you heard me. Please, can you hear me? Did you hear me? Did you hear everything? Did you hear me? Just let me know. You can speak. Let me just hear. Then you put off your mic. Did you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Now let's go into the meat of the matter. Now, section 1, the 3-act structure. Now, there are several structures, right? But let me try to minimize this. Oh, I've done something wrong now. I was trying to reduce I was trying to reduce, where is this? Or let's just go on. I was trying to reduce the size of the page. Let me see. Okay, so there are different structures, of telling stories. But I'm assuming that there are people here who this will be their first time of writing stories or learning about storytelling. But there are people who this is their first time of knowing that there are structures to storytelling. So I chose the one that you can, because there are other things we'll be talking about today that will set you up for writing beautiful stories or telling beautiful stories. So, but I chose one of the structures, the simplest and the most commonly used structure of writing stories. What I mean structure is, if you want to build a house, there's foundation, there are walls, and there are roofs. When it comes to story, the middle, the before you go to the foundation, then you go to the roof. How it happens. But this 3-act structure, we start from the foundation, the walls, then the roof. So now the setup, the 3-act structure of storytelling, like I said, there are many other structures, but with this we are good to go. Everyone knows this. This is the most common, the 3-act structure. Now let's run. The setup, this is where you introduce your characters, the beginning of your story. So for instance, please can someone just give me their name? Anyone, just give me your name. Anyone, anybody.
Love it.
Love it. Did you say love it?
Yes, love it, AJ.
Oh my God, that's a beautiful name. Okay, so now love it, Eje. Let's say want to write a story about love it, or one experience one experience love it had. Okay, so we want to just write a page, or let's just say half a page of something that happened to love it. Now this is fictional. I don't know love it. All right, I just got to hear name. So this is fictional now. So this is where you introduce your characters and their world. So you can call this part the opener. So I can say, let's just say Lovett got admission into a school, and that was where this experience started, something she had never experienced before. And again, please let me say this, because some of you will go on to become will base your work on storytelling. So let me tell you this. Please do not imitate African writers. African writers are boring from their introduction. So when African writers want to write, they'll say the sun was red and the land was blue, the tree was blowing. If you wrote that 1960, 1970, we understand. But now the world has gone very, very fast or far away from that. People want your first line to pull them in. All right. So your first, we'll get to that, but I just want to say this in case I forgot, right? I didn't write it there because I didn't expect that maybe we'll go deep into that. Introduce your character from the get-go. So let me introduce my character now, Love It. It was one ought have to know. She never expected what happened to her. She never knew that this this phase of her life was going to set her up for a journey she never expected in her whole life. Lovett was her name. Eje was her father's name. But, I've introduced something now. I've introduced a character, from the get-go. From the opening, I just said that, okay, we are about to tell the story of someone who entered a phase she never prepared for, and her name was Lovett. I can now go on to say she just recently gained admission into this social school, and there I started. Now, and now I've introduced my character. I've introduced the world of my character. She's a student now. She's in a school. So from there, the reader understands that, or the audience understands that, okay, I'm about to start this journey with someone whose name is Lovett, and this is her school. If I want to go further, I might begin to say, Lovett was this calm girl, and okay, let me say this now. When you are telling stories, we will get to that, but I want to say this before I go there. When you are telling stories, don't tell people, show people. So if I tell you that Lovett is a calm girl, you may not relate to it. But if I say that one day someone slapped Lovett and Lovett did not retaliate, she held her peace and simply asked why. Now you'll be like, oh my God, this girl is such a calm girl. And what will happen? Anything I tell you you will not hold it strongly as something you came to realize by yourself. And that is where storytelling becomes important. So don't tell people, show people. So instead of telling them that, John is a very good guy, just write a part where John's goodness came into play. Now, we've talked about the setup. This is where you introduce your character from the beginning and the world of your character. Okay? You have to make the audience have a perception of your character. Who is she? What kind of person is she? All right, and what they want to achieve. So this is where you can also call that incident. So the beginning of your story, you may want to say, okay, Lovett aimed to graduate with first class, right? And to do that with straight A's. Now, this is something Lovett wants to achieve, and this will form the arc of the story. Now, we've set the first set, we've done the setup. Now, the next one is the confrontation. This is the middle of the story. So now, Lovett wants to achieve first class. Lovett is a calm girl. She does not cheat. She does not fight trouble. But Lovett to achieve first class, different problems. She now ran into different problems. Some lecturers, because she's a fine girl, from lecturers who began to disturb her. She now fell in love with one guy who is giving her issues. Now, because she wants to read in class, yes, there's danger. One day she was reading in class and rain fell. It was too cold. She had to sleep in the hostel. And by sleeping in the hostel, she had to sleep in the floor because it was not her lodge. Now, these are problems lovers have to face. In this 3-act structure, there's a beginning, the middle, you introduce the wahala, the problems, the issues, the trials, right? And the trials have to emanate from what the character wants to achieve. Now, if you are reading this book, Chike and the River, I think Chike, I don't know, I can't recall everything again, but I think Chike wanted to go to Asaba by all means. And that's where what Chike wanted to achieve. And that's where all the trouble started from sleeping in a carton to joining a lorry, different things, just to cross the River Niger into Asaba. Now that is the meat of the story, the confrontation. Okay, so let every trial. So if your story is long, make sure that every challenge the character is facing is coming out of the previous challenge. For instance, in Chike and the River, the first challenge was, Chike losing his way and does not know where to go. Then, because he does not know where to go, he went to sleep in a carton. Now, that's another challenge. Sleeping in a carton, some robbers were now around, So I think he shook himself and someone shouted, "Who that?" Okay. So you notice now, every trial comes out of the last trial. Now, remember to keep the crisis related to the plot of the story and vivid to your listener. What I mean by related to the plot is, for instance, now, when you're writing stories, your mind is imaginative. You're not trying to create a problem that does not exist in the setting of your character. For instance, now, let's say you are writing a story that is set in maybe the US or somewhere that has steady light, steady power. and you're not trying to bring a problem that comes from inadequacy or erratic power supply. It does not make sense. Or this girl wants to finish first class, but the problem she's facing is a problem that will affect maybe her family or something. It does not make sense. So make every crisis keep them related to your plot and give it to your listener or your reader. Meaning that even if um, they are not there, you describe it in such a way that they can understand what you're saying. Then the last part is the resolution. So the crisis reaches its peak and the character reaches a dead end. If you are watching movie, this is the height of it. Like it can never be as worse. It can never be worse than this again. They call it climax. The character reaches a dead end. This is where you now introduce the turning point, where he learns a lesson or makes a mistake the listener should learn from. So for some of us who write on social media, when you reach the climax, you now introduce. I'll teach you how to introduce these switches. They call it bridges. You will introduce it and make the listener to learn from it. For instance, now a man who wanted a traditional home now went ahead to marry a woman who is not so giving to traditional family settings and all that. So the woman gives him a lot of issues, troubles. He feels like maybe the point where he feels like committing suicide, something just happens and he finds a way out. And this is where the resolution comes in. So this is where you now resolve all unanswered curiosities. Whether the guy himself now learns a lesson or you now twist it in a way that your listener learns from this guy's mistake. All right. So this way you resolve all unanswered curiosities, resolve all conflicts. But if you want to continue the story, for instance, if you are watching Avatar, now if you've ever seen this series, Avatar, or any soap opera, the last part of the episode, they will leave a loop. They will not answer one curiosity. It will now be what you will look out for in the next story or in the next episode. So, for instance, now, a man was trying to get married to a girl after a lot of issues from the family. They later agreed. So while they were now planning the wedding, the guy and the lady, a call comes in, and because they were writing, she picked her call and put on loudspeaker. And the man called, "My baby, I have missed you. Ever since we enjoyed ourselves some time ago, you never called back." And the story ends there. Wow. The reader, or if it's a movie, wants to know, oh boy, this like there's wahala, what's going to happen? What's happening next? Now that's a loop. There's an unanswered, unresolved conflict there. So they want to hear your next story or go to watch the next movie. So this is the three-act. This is the three-act structure of telling stories: the beginning, the middle, the end. The setup where you set the pace for the story, the confrontation where you introduce the trials, and the resolution where you end your story. Did you hear me? Are you following? Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. We are making progress. Now, like I said, there are different setup, but please, if you are new to it or you're not so sure, stick to this three-act structure. The beginning, the setup, where you introduce your character, the confrontation, and the resolution. Now, there are different type of story forms. Now, the difference between the story form and the structure is that story form is just types of stories. The structure is how the stories are arranged. Do you understand? So when I explain the story forms, now you understand what I'm saying. That even all this one, this beating the monster, this grass to grace, this quest to adventure, you can use this three-act structure to tell any of all these type of stories. So now, types of stories, there's the beating the monster story. This one now, which example can we give? David and Goliath. Which movie? The Creed now. The Creed. This guy wants to beat. Yeah, in movie The Creed. I think The Creed Part 2. There are two things he wants to beat. his father's glory that is haunting him, because people said that his father was a successful boxer. So he is trying to beat the monster that he is not good enough like his father, and he's trying to also beat the enemy. So now that's his story, beating a monster. There's an actor, there's a hero, there's an enemy. That's one type of stories. Okay. The next type of story is grass to grace. Oh my God, this one moves a lot of people because majority of the world are not where they want to be. So when you tell a story of someone who moved from grass to grace, you evoke a lot of emotion. Evoke a lot of emotion. If you, for instance, now look at these guys who are rich, who came from poor background. If they write 2, 3, 4 ways how to become rich, people may not pay attention. They'll be like, instead of to share money, they are telling us stories. But if they should just write, I suffered, I didn't wear shoes, I didn't wear clothes, life was hard for me, but see now, see how God just helped me. I met this man helped me. People will react, people will shout, oh my God, they will they'll feel connected to it. All right, so that's the grass to grace story. You were suffering, now you're no longer suffering. You had this problem, and you no longer have this problem. Esther was a normal Jewish girl. Now she's a queen. That's a great story. Then there's the quest or adventure story. If you've seen this movie, The Monkey King, Journey to the West. So it's about these monks that they were journeying to somewhere in Nepal to go and discover one secret scroll. And that's an adventure. Now, the Odyssey of Odysseus, that's an adventure story. Someone trying to find out something. That's a quest adventure story. That's another form. You can use any of these forms to tell your story. There's the journey and return story too. What this type of story does is just like a quest and adventure, but it's more like you went on a journey and return. For instance, now Julius Caesar, he went on a voyage to conquer lands and he returned. So now, where the 3 act structure working here, let me just give this example now. So the setup is where this guy, we introduce the hero and his quest to go and discover something. So on his way to where he wants to discover something, that's where the confrontation happened, the trouble he faced and all that. We can even involve that even when he's returning, there are a lot of trouble he faced. Then the resolution, the last part is how he returned, the welcome he received, how the king gave him a wife, how they gave him estates. So you see now, the 3 act structure can work in any of all these forms. Then we have the comedy, we have the tragedy. You should know what that means now. I like writing comic stories a lot, especially on my Facebook. And I'm saying this here, I just hope they don't bust me one day. Some of those stories are partly fictional, partly real. But I'm so good by the grace of God, such that you can't even tell. I don't want to say this thing really happened. Right. So it's my imaginative work at play there. Right. So that's comedy, make people laugh, make people excited, But if you are not, your imagination has not played with you very well for you to create comedy out of nothing, don't try that. Then there's tragedy, where people write stories, and when you read it, you feel sad. Then there's the rediscovery of birth. What this story does, for instance, in this kind of story now, someone is lost. People are lost. Then maybe they went through a challenge, and the challenge now this make them discover a strength they didn't know they had. For instance, Jack and the Giant Slayer now. Is it Jack the Giant Slayer? Yeah. So Jack was just the ordinary guy now. There was nothing special about Jack, right? But he went through a problem and all that. They faced giants, and so because when he got that being, I think, and he had that ring, that is the ring now, or the crown, the ring for the monster, the crown for a man. The men now discover that truly, with love and some things, you can overcome challenges. So we can say when we're introducing Jack and the problem the people were facing, that's the setup. The problems that those guys started coming down, destroying, killing things, threatening. Now that's the confrontation. The end where Jack wore the crown and the giants bowed to him. That's the resolution. So all these types of story forms, the 3-act structure can work for them. Now that's the difference. These story forms are just types of how stories can be said. Then the structure is how you can arrange the parts of that story. So now we are moving to section 2. Now this is where the meat is. If you have not jotted anything down or kept anything down, this is where I think you should really put something down. Please, can you still hear me? Are you with me?
Yes, boss.
Okay. Thank you so much. So now, section 2, storytelling techniques. Now, these techniques can be likened to spices added to stories to make them convey the teller's imagination adequately. So let's look at a few of them. For instance, when I started now, I said, for instance, John left his house to work and John entered the bike. The bike almost fell, but John did not later fall and John came home. Now, that's the story. Basically, that's the story. I said John wants to work. That's set up. He fell from the bike. He did later injure himself. That's the confrontation, and he came home. Now that's the resolution. I've told a story, but it's not interesting. It's just bland and plain. Now I want to make it interesting, so that's where I add storytelling techniques. Now, please pay close attention. Please, I beg in the name of God, please pay close attention. Now, every story should have a main character, a protagonist, a hero. Sometimes some stories say the main character is the villain. For instance, the Joker. Well, the movie now, the Joker. The main character is the bad guy, the villain. But there must be a main character. If you're not right, if you're not telling a main character, you're giving a commentary now. You're writing an essay. It's not a story. Because people want to have a hero. People want to have a king. You understand? So your story must have a protagonist. You must have a hero. And when there's a hero, there's an enemy. There's this movie, Mega Mind. I don't know if any of you have seen that movie. So the setting of that movie is that the villain was angry that there was no superhero for him to fight. So he wanted to create a hero so that he can fight the hero. So where there's a hero, there must be an enemy. Now, the enemy can be a person. For instance, David and Goliath. David is a hero. The enemy is Goliath, right? It can be a place. You know. Now, in the Odyssey of Odysseus, there's a place where they were on the sea, and there's this people from under the water, they used to sing. And when they sing, you become drawn to their voice. You jump into the water and drown also. So now, it's a place. The enemy can be a recurring event. For instance, now maybe oh my God, I made a mistake. It should be a jinx, not jinx. A recurring event. For instance, maybe there is earthquake that normally happen once every year. So now there's this hero comes up and says, no, this must end. So the whole story is not like him trying to find a way out. It could be a jinx, an unexplainable event that keeps repeating itself. It could be an ideology. For instance, now there's in Mulan. The Mulan is a hero. What Mulan was fighting was the that women cannot fight in wars. The enemy can be something within the hero. So something within the hero can be fear. It can be bad habits, whatever it is. It can be within the hero. It can be low self pride. So that's the enemy within the hero. So the story becomes this is a hero. These are problems that his pride led him into, or problems he encountered trying to divide, then how he will stand against his pride. So now, if you are in the marketing world, you know, your enemy can be what your customer's major problem is. For instance, let's say I'm selling clothes, and my own clothing line is sharp clothing line that we deliver it as fast as food. So now the enemy of my customer will be, she was going out on a dinner date. Then she just bent down to buckle her shoe and the clothes ripped. She felt frustrated. She felt like you know, she couldn't describe the pain, the frustration. But that was where, like a hero, my clothing line came in. She just texted me, and within 15-20 minutes I was at that doorstep with the exact clothes that ripped off, that tore. Now you see, now look at how I presented the enemy and um, the hero. So my closing line is a hero. The problem that she faced there was the enemy. So every story should have a protagonist. Now, number 2, this is what really makes stories interesting. Engage conflicts. Conflict makes story interesting. Without conflict, your story is lame. The story is lame. Engage conflict. Let every chapter has conflict it's solving. If you do, you know, if you have seen Jennifer Diaries, why Jennifer Diaries is interesting before they stopped airing was that every episode, unlike other series where one episode will just start and it just continue, and after 30 minutes they are telling us to wait for the next one. What Jennifer Diaries did was that the beginning of the episode has its own setup, it has its own challenge, and they bring it up. So in that episode, we know that this is a problem. So in that episode, they try to solve the problem. So let every chapter, have a conflict in mind. Okay, let's say this guy now, the story is about one guy that wants to fall in love with a girl and the girl is not giving him attention. Now the conflict is the problem he passed through just because he wanted to get the attention. It's the hero that will experience this struggle. Okay, so as the hero will experience this struggle and try, as they try to beat the enemy, it could be challenges you face as you try to succeed. Maybe you are trying to tell your own story now. So what really makes the reader engage with your story is the problems you faced. People like problems a lot too, especially when it's not happening to them. So, so engage conflict in your stories. Now, number 3, avoid unnecessary detail. Oh my God, newbie writers do this a lot. So let me use Brother John now, because I started with him concerning the going to work thing. Now, Brother John wanted to go to work. Now, the story I want to tell was that Brother John almost fell today because of the carelessness of a bike man. So my intention for the story is that people should warn their bike men, anybody entering, to not hurry or be careless on the road. Now that is my intention. That's the theme of my story. But now, this is my story now. Brother John came out of his house. He saw his sister Busayo. He greeted Sister Busayo. Sister Busayo did not answer. He now greeted Yabashira. Yabashira now answered. Brother John now said, what even concern me? He now carried his bag. He now sat on the one bike. He now went to work. All those unnecessary detail, any detail that does not add to the theme of your article, of your story, delete it. Sometimes you will even make mistake. You write unnecessary detail. When you are done, go over it again. The thing is, what produces the best writing is not your first draft, it's your second draft. Most good writers know this. Before you even send it to your editor, that's if you're writing a book now, after you write it first and you go over it, you discover some unnecessary details, sometimes a full paragraph that does not really add to the theme. The theme is Okada men being careful. So Basira not answering his greeting was not necessary. So leave it out. If I'll let put it now, when they are reading your story or they are listening to your story, it's just like a river flowing. When there's a point where there's an unnecessary detail, it's as if you block the water from flowing. The reader, the listener gets disinterested or uninterested, or he loses interest, and you may have lost that listener, you may have lost that reader. They just swipe up and leave you there. So make sure that the next sentence you are saying is necessary for a future event. Let every sentence you are saying be necessary for a future event. So if I'm saying Bashira did not greet John as Sir John, in the future of that story, there must be something that refusal to answer John caused for either John or for her. Do you understand? So avoid unnecessary detail. Number 4, infuse suspense. Infuse suspense. Is that not why we watch horror? Is that not why we watch thriller? Is that not why we watch action movies? Is that not why we watch some soap operas? Make the climax or next scene unpredictable. Now, there are 2 ways to infuse suspense into your story. Now, this is okay. Let me just give you an example now. So you are telling a story of a man who was cheating on his wife. So his wife went to work. Okay, his wife went to work, and she forgot something at home. The normal storyline. She forgot something at home. Now she's on her way back. Now, this first way to infuse suspense is that 2 ways to do this is to make the reader more aware than the character. So now, okay, let me just say read or listener now. So as I'm telling you the story, I tell you that the man is already in bed with the girl, the side chick. The wife is on her way. She was already at her gate. She knocked, but because the man increased the sound of the sound system so that nobody will hear their noise from inside, he didn't hear. Now, what has happened? The character in the story, the man, does not know that the wife is outside, but you, the listener, know that the wife is outside. What has happened? The reader is more aware than the character. Now look at a horror movie. The killer is at the door. He has even passed through the door with the knife in hand. You are outside watching the TV and you are shouting, "Leave here now! The man is almost close to you. Look at your back! Look at your back! Look at the man!" The person in the movie is a movie character. She's not even hearing you. She cannot hear you, but you are shouting, "Look at your back!" Why? That's suspense. Suspense is in your heart because you are more aware than the character in the movie or in the story. So when you are telling people that, you can use this style. Telling people a story, you can use this style to infuse suspense. The next way to do that is to start to place the drama first. For instance, 2 days ago, a man lost his money to fraudsters just by just by brushing his teeth. I'm like, what? How? Now that's the end of the story. Because whatever you are going to tell now, should have ended with thought. So he eventually lost his money because he was brushing his teeth. That's the end actually. But now you are starting with the end. So the listener will like, by brushing teeth, he lost his money. How? So now you are building the story from the bottom to the top. You have created suspense. So the reader wants to know, or the listener wants to know, how is this possible? How did it happen? So from there, you can even go over to the beginning. It was one early morning. He took up his phone. He did this. So the reader is suspense in his mind, is in his or her mind, trying to know why brushing teeth to make someone to lose money. That's one way to infuse. So that's the way you can infuse suspense. Number 5, start with power. Please, are you still with me? I'm sorry, I'm asking. I need to be sure. Can you still hear me?
Yes, sir. Can I hear you?
All right. I will run now because of your time. I'll be fast now. Number 5, start with power. Start with power. Please, this is not a Wakanda, but you have to start with power, obviously. So start with power. Now, if you are a social media writer or you are a writer of thriller stories or movies, you want to catch the attention of your reader from the first few seconds. And the way to do this is to start with an action. So when I talked about Lovett, okay, no, I didn't. Let me use that Lovett example again. Let me use another example. No, one way to do this is to start your first sentence with action. Get out of my house! He barked at his wife. Wow. On the get-go, the first line they are seeing is an action. People like action. People like, wahala, what's happening? Why did he bark at his wife? What did she do? What caused him to bark? Is he okay? So you start your story. Now, if you are reading this guy's book, Angels and Demons, so the beginning starts with Langdon swimming. The setup starts with Langdon swimming when he received the call. And the call was from an unexpected place, telling him of an artifact that he believed was not existing. And he had to travel to Rome, or Switzerland. That's Angels and Demons by Dan Brown, the trilogy, Edges and Demon, Da Vinci, Origin, and Da Vinci Code. So start with an action. Enough of all those descriptions, the sun was this, the weather was this. Even if you are writing that, keep that as brief as possible and introduce the character and what the character was doing or is doing. Now, number 6, tell your story in your natural voice. Some people, far too many people, get stuck on the first chapter or the first sentence because they are trying to tell a story like their idol. I know you idolize Chimamanda Adichie, but you are not Chimamanda, and I doubt if you can ever be Chimamanda. So, if Chimamanda was trying to be Chinua Achebe, who she said influenced her, she wouldn't be Chimamanda. She wouldn't tell her stories the way she tells her stories. So tell your own story in your own voice. There's someone who have interpreted your experience like the way you have. So tell us in your language, in your natural tone. Okay? Tell it as you, as if you are having a conversation with a friend. You know. By the way, if you are writing a story, don't write it like you are writing to everybody. Write it like you are writing a letter to one person. Because even if you are writing to 1 million people, they will read it individually. All right. So if people even know that, for instance, we look at group messages. People don't take group messages serious as they take their personal message. You understand? Or if they know that your message is a broadcast message, they don't pay attention to it. You get. So tell a story like you would tell a friend. Whether you are speaking to a group of people. Let me give you an example now. So I am in the front of, I'm standing before 100 people, and I want to tell them a story something that happened to me. And I start like this. Now, this is what happened to me last year. If it were you, what would you do? There are millions of people, there are hundreds of people, but I said, if it were you is a personal pronoun. Is it a pronoun now? I don't know. It's not a pronoun. I don't know if it's a pronoun now. It's not a pronoun. But you is something personal, right? If it were you, what would you do? Now, even though there are 100 people there, they are listening to me as a person, so their attention will be drawn to me. So tell your story in your natural voice, your natural language. Number 7, make it visual or imaginatively visual. Now, what this means is that physically, now, if you are teaching a group of people, bring props. Bring props. You know what I mean by props? If you are talking your story will be an apple, you can bring an apple. You understand? You can, show images on slides. Now, imaginatively visual is by using description. Oh my God, I use this a lot. So, for instance, I'm trying to describe maybe a guy's company, and I want to let my reader feel what I felt and imagine they were there. He said, I was okay. Let me just tell this story now. This thing came to my mind. I'm just creating it now. So I was walking on that bridge, on that pedestrian bridge. The railings to my right was just half a meter away, and to my left, half a meter away. I was there in the middle. A man by my side, his dread made him look rough, but I trusted him anyway. By the way, some good people can appear bad. The woman by my side looked innocent, even though she had some hideous scar on her face. Her eyes were very innocent. There we were, walking side by side on that bridge, when this guy just brushed me. I never suspected anything. I felt it was maybe just because the bridge was tight, it was just a gentle nudge. When I was about climbing down from the bridge, I felt light. I touched my pocket. I couldn't believe what was happening. My eyes became red instantly. It was as if rain was about to fall from my eyes. Could it be true? I looked at my back. No one was there. Now, what have I've made you picture where I was. That I was on a bridge. The edge of the bridge was not far from me, and there were 2 people by my side. I described the 2 people briefly. So, by the dread on the guy's head, you will imagine that, okay, this guy by my side is a rough guy. By this woman's side, it's okay, there was an innocent woman by my side. Why? I used descriptive writing to give you a picture. Now, that's if you are writing. Or you can also, when you are telling, you can also use that. You can also use dramatic body movement. For instance, if you are telling a story that you called the girl, you can make your hand into the form of a phone and put it to your ear. I called the girl. Because people light travels faster than sound, but I hope you know that. So if you put your hand to your ear, they will know quickly that you are talking about making a call than you saying it. That's one of the secrets of storytelling on stages and all that, or even in a group or around a group of people. By demonstrating, if you are saying, you felt like crying, you can even make your face a little bit sorrowful. People will be watching at you, they won't even be distracted. Why? Because humans like to see moving pictures. We cannot look at a static thing for more than 7 seconds, the study says. So make it visual. Now, these descriptions can play with figures of speech like simile. I was describing this guy's hair. You can say his hair was as rough as Bristol, or you can say his hair was a Bristol. Or you can use hyperbole. Hyperbole is exaggerations. So I'm trying to rush now because of our time. Now, number 8, employ plot twists. Plot twists are one of the most beautiful ways to tell an interesting story. So the brain always wants something new, and plot twist surprises the brain with an unexpected narrative. For instance, a woman was cheating on her husband with her ex. Okay, I think I made a mistake here. Her husband was cheating on her husband with her ex. Then later, her ex comes to claim their child. So she was cheating with her husband with her ex-boyfriend. Then later on, her ex-boyfriend comes to claim their child. But normally now, what people expect that, of course, obviously, is the ex that owns their child. But the DNA reveals that the child belongs to her parents. Meaning that DNA reveals that the child belongs to her father. That's a plot twist. People are like, hey, how come? That's a plot twist. There's a way people have already expected that the way this story is going. That's where American movie is different from Nigerian movie. Nigerian movie, from the beginning, you already know how it's going to end. But American movie or the foreign movies, you can't tell the end from the beginning because they employ plot twists a lot. Now, use bridges well. Bridges, what are bridges? Maybe look at the river now. There's land by this side, there's land by this other side. A bridge brings two of them together. Two land. Now, bridges work well if you are trying to link two different stories. Now, listen to me as I explain this. I want to link Lovett and John together. Sam, just listen to me. John is a kind guy. I remember the other time when John had to sacrifice his rent, half his rent, for his friend who needed to pay for his school fees. Though it was not a convenient decision for John, John was able to pull that off. John's action reminded me of an old friend called Lovett. Did you see what I did here? That bridge, the bridge now is John's action reminded me of an old friend. Now that's the bridge there. Linking two different stories together. John's action reminded me of an old friend, Lovett. Lovett was another kind soul too. I could also call her an angel. I could even call her an angel. See, now you didn't even know that I've stopped talking about John. You didn't even notice because I used that bridge well to move into Lovett. Now we are talking about Lovett. Now that's how bridges work. Okay, so two more different stories together, or if you are trying to switch from a story to a lesson, you can use that. For instance, now let's say John was kind and God helped him, and people, due to his kindness, people remembered him, and I want to teach people to be kind. So I'm like, this thing that happened to John today, it could happen to me and you, or things became well for him. So maybe you're looking, something like that. You try to shift from the story. You pick from the story and try to bring the lesson into it. Or I tell a story of a girl who was very, should I say, very chaste now. And when a communicable disease broke out, an STI broke out, she was safe or something. And I'm trying to encourage girls to be safe. And I can be like, just like Anna, many of our girls today can be saved from STIs if you see it now, I just cut just like Anna. So use bridges well. Bridges act like conjunctions and keeps the audience hooked without knowing that the story has changed. All right, we are about rounding up now. We've talked about the meat of the matter. Can you hear me? Are you still with me? Sorry, we're about rounding up now. Are you still with me?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Oh, thank you so much. I'm encouraged.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So section 3, how to improve on your storytelling, how to improve your storytelling technique. Progress is the hope of every journey. And for even the most decorated of storytellers, it is growth over goals. All right. So no matter how good you are, you should keep improving. Now consider these improvement routines. Keep reading different stories. There are people on Facebook that I don't agree with their ideologies, so I keep reading from them because I learn how they write their stories. It's not like I will be like them, but studying how they arrange their stories, how they use the elements, how they introduce their characters. Any day it increases my creativity. For instance, now if you learn different ways of cooking egusi, you cook it in your own way. It having different touches, it will be different because it has a touch of different forms. So keep reading different stories, authors, and materials of interest. Why I said materials of interest is that the more you know, the better your stories. That's just it. The more you know. For instance, Chino Achebe used ideologies that were unique to Africa because he knew a lot of Igbo proverbs. He knew a lot of Igbo ideologies. He knew a lot of how the whites colonized the Igbo culture, or the turned the Igbos against their culture, because he was writing for his culture. So if you really want to be a good writer, you should read a lot or learn a lot. You should really read. Not just stories or authors. You should read the matters of your interest. Know a lot about it, because the more you know, the more depth your story will have. The more depth your story will have. Okay. Then number 2, write very often, whether you feel like it, and it doesn't have to be perfect to be a story. Please, my friends, it doesn't have to be perfect to be a story. The stories I wrote 4 years ago and people were liking and sharing and calling me guru. When I see it now, I'm like, God, what was I doing? Probably now, when I improve on myself and I come back 3 years and I look at my stories today, I'll be like, God, what was I doing? So celebrate yourself at your current level and just post your stories. Write your stories. Write it. Some people are not posting their stories. It's not humility, my dear. It's self-esteem. Just accept. It's self-esteem. Whether people like or not, post it. Just be posting it. It will be a track record of your progress. So write your stories. Write it, whether I feel like it or not. You write. When you get stuck, you can take a walk and come back and continue. Write very often. Now, meditate a lot. People, when they have an idea, they just jump and start writing. You will write, but it may not be deep. It may just be shallow. But when you meditate on a character, when you meditate on a theme, your creativity comes to play. For instance, now I can just be thinking about the problems of women in Nigeria, like the challenges faced by women. And I said, think, ponder about it. What problems are they facing? Things begin to open up. I begin to find new narratives, narratives that many people have not known very well about a particular challenge. And when you write your own story, people like, but this guy's view is different. Why? Because this guy had the patience to dig deep down through meditation, right? So meditation is the art of concentrated pondering on a matter. It helps you to discover your unique version of an event, because an event can have different interpretation. And if you don't spend time with your thoughts, you may not really discover your unique interpretation of it. So meditation helps you tell deep stories with deeper meaning. Then let your imagination fly. My God, you're not writing a thesis. You're not writing a project or a term paper. Let your imagination fly. Let your imagination fly. Sometimes I think and I keep thinking and I burst out laughing. Because I'm laughing from what I thought about. You get, I'm laughing what I thought about. I'm creating a story in my mind, and there's a funny part my mind just suggested, and I laugh about it. And I think, should I write this? And I write this on Facebook, and like people are excited and laughing. Bad guy, I thought you are good. How did you come up? It's because I give my imagination the permission to do what? To fly. So give the imagination permission to fly. Don't say, this thing is sounding childish. Or look at animations now. Do you know that animations gross, they make more money? Many animations made more money than real movies. For instance, Kung Fu Panda, Coco, Moana, Avatar End, which other, Ice Age. Many animations made more money than some real life movies. So let your imagination fly. So we are almost rounding up. Number 4, where can you use stories? Section 4, what needs stories? Number 1, we have blogs and vlogs. So when you look at blogs, stories sell a lot on blogs. You can your vlogs, that's your video blogs. Let me put it that way. I think they are majorly stories now. Vlogs are stories. So a guy is traveling and is recording what he went to the village. Right? Then we have conversations. Like the picture you can see, they're having conversations. Tell stories and influence your people. Public speaking. If you really want to hook your audience, jump down from your stats and start telling them about how your stats affect the normal person, how your findings affect the normal person, how the new bacteria you saw, what could be the reason why there's this sickness that has been troubling these people in this area and no one was talking about. And by using storytelling, you can now begin to say, by doing this also woman does not have to be afraid of taking her child to the hospital, blah blah blah. So that's one way you can use stories. Another way is by selling and advertising.